Hi, kids.
It sounds like sounds off.
That's not a good thing.
Oh no, technical difficulties.
All right, can you hear me now? For some reason, OBS decided that they didn't want me to use my Yeti. So, once
Oops.
again, we are going to have a serious discussion about suicide prevention and mental health today. And we're going to focus in specifically on the LGBTQ plus community. We have a lot of guests today that have joined us. I'm very excited about. Okay, they can hear me now. Yay. I'm very excited about this chat, but it's going to be a serious one. It's going to be a tougher discussion. So let's go ahead and start with Lavender Lady if you want to describe yourself and your channel, and then we'll go on down the line.
Sure thing. Hi, kids. I am the Lavender Lady. Rather new to the YouTube scene. I came on in about January or so. I'm still developing my muse, but I do spend some time looking at the reason behind belief and a few other things to that effect. Okay, next person.
Okay, so the next person would be Dawn.
Hi, I'm Don, another freaking atheist. I have a channel and I interview other atheists, try to promote their channels, and I also tackle social issues to so that people have more information about the issues, so they can be more skeptical about them. This issue is serious to me because there's a few things in my life that make it so that suicide and suicide prevention in general is uh, definitely important.
Okay,
Next.
and Luciano.
Hi, everybody. I hope that you guys can hear me. I know that
Very
I know
well.
that in this we can hear each other, but if you can't hear me, let me know. I am Luciano Gonzalez. I am not someone who's a new YouTuber. I've been YouTubing since the start of YouTube, but I've had multiple channels, so I never gained that much of an audience. But that's changing. I'm gaining more subscribers. I'm experimenting on YouTube, and also I'm asexual and I live in the deep south. So mental health and the LGBTQ community is pretty important to me.
All right.
Yeah, if I could cut in really quickly, yeah, I am also part of the LGBT community. For those who don't know, I am lesbian, I am trans, so part of that fits in. Okay, next.
All right, Mrs. Snarky.
Howdy, y'all. I'm Mrs. Snarky, and my channel is relatively new, about 3 months old, and I challenge the ideas of New Agers mainly, and I also do interviews. I'm also part of the LGBT community. I'm bisexual, so there's that. Yeah, I'm also sad about Anthony Bourdain.
Yes.
Awful, awful what happened.
Okay, and Secular.
Um, yeah, I'm secular. I'm also bisexual. Uh, and this topic really hits close to home for me because I was suicidal a couple months back. Even I was not in a good place. So yeah, this is a pretty important topic for me. Um, my channel, I don't know how to describe it because it's kind of a mess right now. I don't know what I want to do yet, but I'm going somewhere probably.
Okay, and Faye Wonder Lady, would you like to go ahead and go?
Hi, I'm Wonder Lady on YouTube, and you can call me Faye if you want to send me a message. My channel is still forming. Mrs. Snarky taught me how to use a program yesterday, so I'll be making more videos. I It is my goal to do a godless crime or godly crime show, but I'm going to be dealing with a lot more topics than that, and hopefully it's informative and educational.
Okay, and that sounds very interesting. A godly crime show.
Hmm.
Um, and I, of course, am the Godless Iowan. Everyone here can call me Matt if you'd like. I was a former Pentecostal minister, and this topic hits hard because part of the reason why I left the faith deals with a suicide in the family. And so I'll probably go more into that later. But for now, if if you or someone you know is experiencing suicidal thoughts, seek help, talk to them, get them to seek help. We are not medical professionals, and so we're not capable of diagnosing you with anything. This is just an awareness. We're talking about the issue because it's something that needs to be talked about. And so, just to get us started, um, there are resources in the description below. Is the number for the U.S. National Suicide Prevention Hotline on the screen. Definitely, if you're experiencing any of these thoughts, give that number a call or seek out some of those resources depending on what country you're in. Um, to start, I have depression. Um, I don't know if everyone here. I mean, I've definitely had depression most of my life and dealt with it. Um,
Well, I was
I
going to
have
say, is there
depression
anyone on
as
this?
well.
Oops. I
Sorry.
was going to say, is there anyone on this panel who has not a an experience with depression? I am a long term depressoid. Um, it's taken me out most of my life. So how about everyone else?
Yeah, I have bipolar 2 disorder. So I've dealt with depression for since I was really, if I'm honest, 7 years old, I've noticed.
Yeah, and I have depression and suicidal thoughts, so it's very personal to me, this topic.
uh,
Major
Yeah,
de- major depression, anxiety, and OCD.
I have pretty bad anxiety and depression also.
I think that this is a good topic to have because people who would watch my channel and see some of my funnier videos and some of the fun chats that I have might look at that and say, well, I wish I was as happy as that guy. Um, but I have dealt with depression my entire life. I'm on anxiety meds. I really you cannot tell from a outside look what's going on in the mind of someone. I've had suicidal thoughts. Um, it's just it's not an easy thing to just look at someone and say, well, that person's depressed.
Yes, for sure.
Right.
Um, I know with my suicidal thoughts, they're almost a daily thing that I have to deal with. So it is ongoing. It's not that I want to do anything. It's just I can't stop the thoughts, and
Yeah.
lots of people have to do this daily, deal with it, and find techniques to cope.
I have no idea what that's like. I mean, do you feel like expounding, or would you rather not, Don?
Well, I can if you want.
Because
Whatever you're comfortable
thought
with,
of
Don.
suicide is not one of those things where you can't stop thinking about it.
What was that, Matt?
I was just saying whatever you're comfortable with is fine with sharing.
Yeah, and I'm comfortable with sharing whatever because I think it's an important topic to have out in the open. Um, I deal with other topics that I want out in the open because they're not discussed enough. And this is one I haven't touched on, and it's one that's a life and death situation for many. So it's important to talk about it. So for myself, I've had thoughts, suicidal thoughts, since I was a teenager. Um, I've attempted suicide a couple times. Uh, it's just a constant thing. Um, I've learned ways of coping with it. Um, but because I have depression as well, it is uh, the more the more depressed I am, the harder it is to deal with it. So I have to be very careful.
And today, you've heard it many times already. Um, Depression isn't generally something that you're going to be cured of. Suicidal thoughts is not something you're generally going to be cured of. You're going to learn how to cope with them, and that can involve therapy, that can involve medications, that can involve just different thought processes that you teach yourself. It's not something that you're going to be. You're one day you're going to wake up and okay, I'm no longer depressed. Um, I think that's what's difficult about it because you can go a year and not have a depressing thought come into your mind, and all of a sudden you were just hit with it.
Right.
Yes.
And that's a reason to stay on top of it because I know so many people who have gone off um, psych meds because, okay, I feel fine. I don't need this stuff anymore. And sure enough, it's not a day, it's not a week. Maybe it can be a little while, but it just starts up over again. And it could have been avoided possibly by remaining on the regimen. And that's something that you've really got to get across to people that yeah, even when you do feel a little bit better, you still got to keep that eye on yourself.
Yes, I had an experience with that recently. I forgot to take my meds for like a long
Oops.
time too. A long time. And Matt started noticing that I was in a really bad mood, and I noticed that I just couldn't stop these thoughts that I was having, and I got back on it, and I was also having trouble sleeping, really bad trouble sleeping because bipolar, right? And so started taking it again, and I felt much better. So it is important to stay on your regimen.
And
Yeah.
I have my own personal story on that. Mrs. Snarky can tell you that when we first got back together, I had gotten out of a bad marriage. I'm hearing a bit of an echo from someone. I'm not sure.
Hopefully it wasn't me. I had my mic muted at the time.
I'm not sure. I don't hear it now. But I had just gotten out of a bad marriage. I got back with Mrs. Snarky. We were very happy, and I was on Zoloft at the time. And I decided, you know what? I'm in a better place. I don't need to take this Zoloft anymore. And I cold turkeyed it.
Mm.
And
Ow, you don't want to do that. No, not on an
no,
SSRI.
instantly, within days, I was suicidal. Um,
Mhm.
I did not want to live. I did not want to wake up in the morning. I didn't want to go to school or to work. I contemplated killing myself almost constantly during that time. And it was a very rough couple of weeks there. Um, you know, it got to the point we almost split, and it was really bad. Um, Finally, I got through the rough part, and I'm back on medication now. Um, but it's not a good thing to quit taking your meds.
Right.
And can I point out too that you should, no person should decide whether they should be on meds or not. That's something that a healthcare professional should decide.
Yes.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, I had a
And
similar situation. It wasn't me. There was a miscommunication between doctor and pharmacist, and I was without. I'm on mirtazapine, also known as Remeron. That there was a period where I did not have the access to mirtazapine, and it was just like falling off the edge of a building, folks. I knew how bad it was and could not do a damn thing about it for about 3 weeks. Um, so there's the other thing too with keeping that supply coming, making sure that all the I's are crossed and the T's are dotted.
Yeah.
Definitely. One of the things that they tell you when you're inpatient is don't stop your medication. If you're not comfortable, if you don't like the side effects, etc., etc., don't stop your medication. Consult your doctor. They'll work you through it. They'll put you on something else if you don't like your meds or your side effects. But the reason why you're doing okay is because you're on the medication. You may not feel it working, but it does work.
And
Yeah,
if
Yeah.
if you're in a committed relationship like Mrs. Snarky and I are, you might not notice how much the medicine is doing, but the person you're with might be able to tell you exactly what the medicine is doing. Like when I noticed that she was having insomnia, um, I instantly looked it up and was like, well, this says if you haven't been taking your meds, it's going to cause insomnia. Um, and that's when we discovered that she had forgotten to take her meds for almost a month. Um,
yes.
it was it was pretty rough, but she's gotten to realize then that yeah, that these meds are doing something. They're working.
Yeah.
If when you're bipolar too, one thing I would like to point out, because the bipolar is a little different than the depression, it also has the manic component. So
Right.
it's very tempting to not want to take your medication because you love the mania, you tend to love it. You're more creative, you're whatever. But really it's when the depression hits, it's bad. And so you want to stay level. that's that's what you need. That's what's healthy, is to stay level and to take your meds. And I know that a lot of other bipolar people will get sick of hearing that, but it's just the truth. And I know that I've struggled with my own issues with that, but I do realize that I need to stay on my medication. So
Well, and I think that it's an important point to say that medication itself is not going to fix the issue.
Right.
Um,
Mhm.
Medication by itself will help, but therapy and a regimen um, I use CBT, ways to learn how to think yourself through time periods like that.
Can you
Those are what's
say what CBT is, Matt?
CBT is cognitive brain therapy. Basically,
Or
behavioral.
behavioral.
behavioral, not brain. Why did I say brain? Cognitive behavioral therapy. Basically, the simplest way to put it is to look at the situation that you're in and try to rationalize, is this really what's going on? Um, do I really want to end my life? And talking yourself through these things and going, okay, this isn't me. This is the depression talking.
Yeah.
Um, this is not how I feel on a good day. This is not how other people see me. This is not how I should be right now. And
It's
it
a great way to question your those core beliefs that you have that kind
yes,
of they manifest in repetitive negative or irrational thoughts. So when you're able to question these thoughts and these beliefs, you're able to see that, oh, this is irrational and I could be thinking better about this. And once you get into the habit, it's kind of like it was brought up before. I think it was Faye that brought it up. Once you get into the habit, like 6 months of this, it starts to become natural that you start thinking better about your beliefs of yourself and your situation. So it's very, very CBT along with medication has scientifically shown that it's beneficial. So
yeah,
Well, one of the things about CBT is whether or not people realize it or not, you are constantly doing it. However, if you do it in a negative way, you can, it's basically, it could be circular thinking. Like, I don't want to go to the grocery store because I'm going to see someone I don't like. They don't like me because I'm not likable.
yeah.
um, um, I'm not likable because I said this and I hurt their feelings. I'm an insensitive person. I'm, and it just sort of spirals out of control. In CBT, you learn to put the brakes on and you learn to stop that. And it's very important, and a good therapist, if your therapist isn't practicing CBT with you, talk to them about it. There are books on it. CBT can be used for other things as well, such as pain management. um, it's really important to discuss all kinds of therapy with your counselor, and if you're not comfortable with taking meds, uh, there might be ways around it. It usually means more therapy, though. I mean, a lot more intense therapy, but meds do really help.
yeah. And you bring up a good point on how we are always doing CBT, whether we're doing it in a positive fashion or a negative fashion, is the key. Um, a lot of times, I will feel worthless, and that gets me into the point of depression. It sends me down that downward spiral. And if I'm negative, I'm thinking I'm worthless. Well, I'm worthless because this, and this, and that just keeps going. But if I'm able to say, well, I'm not worthless, I'm helping people. I have a YouTube channel and a blog that so many people have said have helped them. I have all kinds of friends and family online. A lot of people say it, and I believe it, that my friends that are here today, I feel like I'm family with you guys. Um,
Likewise, Matt. Seriously.
Yeah. Yes.
I care for you. And so when I look at that and I'm able to take it into a positive way, you're training your brain to see things in a more positive light. It's not always going to work. You're going to have depressing time periods where even you're like, well, I should be doing positive CBT, but I don't feel like it. Um, so it can be rough, but it can help a lot, especially if it's used in conjunction with medicine and other therapy.
Uh,
Um,
uh, can I just mention one other thing?
yes,
What one thing that really helps people, um, basically know when they're entering a depressive or suicidal episode is to actually have a list things that you enjoy, things that you like to do. Say you listen to music, or you might sing in the car, or you like to play video games, or you're social, and then list of things that you do when you're not doing well, not sleeping, not singing, not, I mean, these are examples, but there are lists, and also know yourself enough to make this list. Ask yourself questions. And if you're doing poorly, do you have a support system? Do you have a friend or family member you can go to and say, am I okay? Am I different? Because those might be signs that you need to talk to your therapist or get a therapist.
Mhm.
That's
Exactly.
actually
Yeah.
really important for people who suffered from abuse
Yes.
and for people who are not necessarily closeted but are not public about things like their religion or their sexuality, or in people like me's cases, their lack of sexuality.
And would you guys mind if I read something from the chat real quick?
Go for it.
Go ahead.
Okay, so Frustrated Atheist wrote, when I was around 9, I had suicidal thoughts every day. I would lash out at everyone. I would cry myself to sleep. I knew I wasn't healthy and didn't want to feel that way anymore. So I decided to be happy and funny so others wouldn't feel like I do. Unfortunately, that means I bottle up my other emotions and eventually my top bursts from time to time.
Mhm.
That's
Boy.
and you know that's very important and topical for today, because there are people like Anthony Bourdain. He recently committed suicide. Other people like Robin Williams committed suicide. They're people that you would look at and you would say, well, they're a happy person. They have everything going for them, but they're portraying to the world what the world wants to see.
Yeah.
And they're bottling everything else up. I did that for years. Everyone would look at me and say, you know, that Matt's one of the happiest people I know. And on the inside, I was just destroyed. I had absolutely no good feelings about myself. And so I was at my darkest place when I wasn't open to anyone, and everyone around me thought I was just perfectly happy and bubbly and joy filled.
It's actually, the statistics are amazing how many people who are in comedy or who joke around are actually in pain.
Mhm.
And I think there is a point to be made here is that, like with myself, I developed comedy so that I could deal with the bullying that I was experiencing.
Oh,
When
hello.
when I could make the bully laugh, the bully didn't punch me in the face. Um, and so I dealt with my bullying by forming this comedy. It didn't deal with the underlying issue that I was depressed and sad and just completely abused throughout my entire school years. Um, it just gave me a way to stop the abuse for a short period of time. Uh,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and the bullying doesn't stop when you get out of school as well.
no,
It may be less obvious, but the bullying continues. Um, and it's uh, things like if you're LGBTQ, um, you know, what you're hearing from churches and media about the community can it is a form of bullying. Um,
Yes.
there,
Yeah.
you know, on I'm on disability, and the amount of times people have said to me, "Oh, well, why can't you work?" and why, there's got to be a job you can do instead of just sit at home doing nothing. And I mean, that's bullying.
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah. Hello, Don. I've heard it more than once, especially from my ex, who would tell me that the disability is such a great vacation. And you would try to say, and it wouldn't get across, this is a vacation you don't want, kids.
No,
Seriously.
well,
no. When you lose like 90% of your friends because um, they see you as just being lazy and they can't be bothered with you anymore,
Mm.
um, you know that that's not a good feeling. When I sit here phone probably 99% of the time,
Mm-hmm.
just because nobody can be bothered, right?
Yeah. And for those who can, very often, it's a financial drain. I mean, it costs you money to go out with people. And
Yeah,
when you don't have that money, that's a really big problem. I think I said it before, I'm on a disability pension myself. And it's everything you can do to pay the rent and buy groceries. And the trip to the local pub or whatever is just out of the question. And a lot of people don't want to, for whatever, or cannot, for whatever reasons, come over and sit around the dining table.
yeah,
This is where I wish that a lot of people would understand the importance of a social network to be out there for the people they know and love. But
yeah.
when it's lonely, it's really difficult to
And Diana,
avoid the sorts of things that we're talking about now.
yeah, and
Um,
I think you'll agree, Diana, that the community, because frustrated atheists is, I'll hang out with you, Don. Um, just about everyone in the chat, I think, will hang out with us.
Yeah.
And the community is a huge support network.
yes, it is.
Yeah. If I may,
Yes,
this
please.
community has actually really helped me a lot because uh, a couple weeks after I started my channel, um, I lost a really close friend, and I trusted them very much. So I'm just now kind of starting to be able to break down those walls that I put up after that. Because I do have a really hard time trusting people now because it's just
Yeah.
I
even though he
understand.
said that like nothing was wrong and that I was perfectly fine, when it finally happened that he said that we could no longer be friends, it hurt a lot because I had no idea what the fuck I even did. He never told me. He just basically said, you know what, I don't like you anymore. Fuck off.
Oh my God.
And
That's
that's
Mm.
Jesus fucking.
that's so harmful.
I'm so sorry.
Well,
yeah, and it doesn't help that I was already going through a pretty bad time with my depression. But you know, I really can't overstate how much you guys have helped because, god damn, you're just amazing people, honestly.
Well, thank
Um,
you. Thank
we
you.
love you, secular,
Yeah,
and
me too.
you
You're
know,
I
amazing
look for
too.
your name all the time. It's like, is he here?
I mean,
and I just wanted to say that for anyone in the chat or anyone in this stream or anyone that I talk to on a daily basis online, if you're ever having any kind of issue, feel free to message me. I am I almost always have my phone on me where I can message you back. And I am more than willing to talk to you about anything you might be going through. Like I said, I'm not a medical professional, so I can't help you in that ways, but I'm always there to listen and try to give you my own perspective. Um,
As well as me too.
Uh, same.
And
Same.
e- yeah, and like I said, I sit around by myself 99% of the time. So even if you just want to do a hangout and chat about, I don't know, I'm not into sports, but the weather or whatever, just hanging out as friends.
yeah,
I'm cool with that too.
yeah.
I'd also like to say that um, it is important to be there for people if they need it, of course, but for a lot of people like me who do have trust issues the way I do, it's it's hard. It's hard to talk to people
Yeah.
yeah.
Oh, yeah.
because you feel like you're just going to annoy them or you're going to say something wrong. And it's a really tough thing to get over. Even now when I talk to some of you guys, I feel like uh, if I say something wrong, I could just I, I don't know. I'm always scared that I'll say something wrong.
Well,
Well,
I'm from New Jersey, and I tell you this: you say something wrong, I'll let you know, and then we'll hug it out. Gotcha?
Yeah.
I
You
like
know,
it.
it's all right. It's okay. I give people permission to be wrong. If they give me permission to be wrong, oh, it's all cool.
and
Okay?
One good thing about being an atheist is when I became an atheist, I slowly but surely got less and less offended by things too. So
yeah,
Yeah, that's always a help.
Uh,
yeah.
I just want to bring one thing up though, and this is actually a subject near and dear to my heart. Uh, watch yourself and others for microbullying. It,
Yeah,
kind of like if you think about poverty, you have people who say, "Oh, you know, people on disability, they're just a blah blah blah," and they say all these negative things. There's enough stigmatism going on.
yeah.
You know,
Mhm.
you name a subject and you can find a way to bully it. So if you could stop yourself, I'm not saying oh everyone's a bully, but yeah, even I can be kind of bullying. Um, but if you go, yeah, that wasn't cool what I said, or if someone's saying something like that, just like, I don't think you're being fair. I mean, you
Mhm.
don't have to say you're being wrong, but in order to like stop the microbullying from becoming out and out bullying, that's something I think we all can get along. You know, like it would improve society so much because these little prejudices in our heads aren't doing us any good, and they're harming others.
Mhm.
That's
Yeah.
very true. It's important that we start to reframe certain things. The atheist veteran in an earlier comment talked about seeking out help and realizing that it's a form of strength, not a form of weakness.
yeah.
And
And uh, can I just comment on reframing?
yeah, you're good.
Um, you, when you reframe, put some thought into it. Because I've mentioned in other streams the fact that saying gay is wrong. So people reframed it, and now they say, "You're." I seen you on Grinder, which it's reframing it, but you're still saying you're gay as an insult.
Yeah.
And so when you reframe, make sure you're reframing it in a way that isn't using you're gay as an insult kind of thing. You got to make sure you're saying things that's supportive.
And if someone does use a slur or something along those lines, one of the things that I do is I turn it into a positive. Um, if someone calls me gay, I will simply say, "Well, thank you. I am fairly fabulous," I and you know, just try to reframe it so that anytime they use that slur against me, they know it's not going to get the response that they want.
Yeah,
Um,
it
Yeah.
weakens it.
And
and
there's something that I do is I will use the slurs in reference to myself to let people know, hey, I'm cool with this stuff. You're not going to hurt me with any of it.
mhm.
I'll do it first, so you get the idea that you can't give me a hard time about it.
Yeah,
It
I do
doesn't work
something.
for everyone, but
Yeah, I do something fairly similar to that. Um, Whenever someone calls me gay, I just go, yeah, that's just what do you think you're accomplishing by calling me gay? I am. That's not. But
It just
like,
means you're better dressed and more interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
like
always try to ask, do you really think that that's still in the 21st century? Do you really think that that's still a slur? Like,
Right.
yeah,
what is your mindset?
yeah. I've been like I'm of the belief that words only have as much power as you give them. Uh,
Yeah,
which I mean, of course, it's different for everyone. If someone does have a problem with a word, don't use that fucking word. If you do, you're an asshole. But
Hello.
like, like I've been called a faggot before, and I'm just like, yeah, and I'm a pretty damn good one too.
Awesome. That's
Uh,
awesome.
one of the things that's been touched on here, Dawn has brought it up, and Lavender Lady as well, is disabilities. Not all disabilities are visual.
Right.
Not everybody is missing a leg or is a paraplegic or not. You can't look at someone and tell if they're disabled. Um, I have autism, and I was told by a medical professional that I could get disability if I wanted to, that they would write up something that would, because I have a huge difficulty with social issues. I've had difficulties keeping a job throughout the years, and I chose at that time not to. But it's very likely at some point in my life I could find myself on disability, and my disability is not one that people can look at and see right away.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
So when you're dealing with unseen disabilities, those are the ones that people are going to say, "Oh, you're just lazy. You just don't want to do something." Um, but that's just bullying. It's
It is.
and it's harmful. Um, people. One of the things, people with who have a disability that cannot work and are unable to do that, they're already beating themselves up quite a bit throughout their life. They don't need other people jumping in and making it worse.
Yeah,
Yes.
I'm pretty sure I have some form of ADD or ADHD, and thankfully my antidepressants help with that. But for the longest time, when I was suffering from both without any type of treatment, I, I, I couldn't I couldn't focus on schoolwork. Like I would sit there and stare at my paper and think, I need to get this done, but I couldn't. And the amount of times I was called lazy, and even the times where I beat myself up because why the fuck couldn't I do this? Like there has to be something wrong with me to
I
where I can't focus on this, and it was tough, and it's just it's such a shitty thing to assume you know what's going on with someone.
exactly.
I would spend many nights when I was going through school, um, bawling and throwing my books across the room because the information just wouldn't stick. I had no idea that that was because I had autism, and that the thing that I was trying to teach myself by reading was not something that my mind was interested in. And when your mind isn't interested in something and you're on the spectrum, you can't force yourself to be interested.
Mm-hmm.
I
Um,
can tell
Yeah.
you this. I can read Old English very well. Chaucer manuscripts and things like that. If I am depressed, I can't read. The I start to read children's books, and I struggle through them. Um, I used to have a photographic memory, but this has really taken a toll on my ability to focus. It's a common thing to not be able to focus enough to read one line and
Hmm.
get it.
mhm.
Yeah, I've had to read lines over and over again. It's still, when you're in that state of mind, it just won't stick.
Right. And you're not broken, and you're not stupid. You need help.
Yeah,
Yes.
like back when back when I'd lost my friend, it was really recent, like a week or two after it happened. I would sit in class and read the same paragraph about World War One for the entire class period, and walk out of that class and have no idea what the fuck it said.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Yeah, I get that quite often because I don't know if you know what brain fog is,
Yep.
but
Yeah.
Mhm.
yeah, you get it with depression and you get it with pain.
Mm-hmm.
And, half the time I'm in enough pain that I get the brain fog. Um, most of the time, I don't even bother trying to read. I used to read lots, but now I don't even bother because um, it it's just so frustrating. So YouTube is actually awesome for it because if you search for the right things, you can get some good information on there, or audiobooks good as well.
Yeah.
But there's lots of times I just say to hell with it, put
Oh,
on
right.
some relaxing music, lay down with Chico, and uh, that's me for hours.
Yeah, I mean, there are times even now, that brain fog issue you mentioned on. One of the reasons I don't put out as much content as I would like is that there are those periods of brain fog, and I research the shit out of what I do, and just that act of research, you're trying to force yourself. I need to do this, and it's not getting through, and I've got a deadline, a self-imposed deadline to meet, and it's not making it. And finally, you just have to shut off the machine and
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
go sit with the cat.
It's
That
it's
sort of
been
thing.
uh it's been asked in the chat from Joan Gronveld. Anyone have a hard anyone get a hard time from their own family for having depression?
Yes.
Oh,
Yeah.
Yeah.
absolutely.
Yeah.
When
Oh
I
wow.
when I attempted suicide, I went to my mom about it. I was living with her really, and her response was, "Why do you have to be so histrionic?"
Why don't you pull yourself up by your bootstraps? Why don't you
Yeah,
just take a walk in the sun? You'll feel better.
yeah.
Why don't you do this? Why don't you do that?
Smile more. Just smile more.
Mm,
Oh geez, yes. I would get from the FSB. For those of you who don't know, that is the female slimy bastard. One of the people the world called my mother. Um, just think about the summer cottage that you would go to as a kid, and I couldn't do that because thinking about that reminded me that I can't go there anymore. Things like that. It's
Yeah.
not as easy as a lot of people think. And okay, I'll give the FSB a little bit of leeway there. She was born before the Depression, in a time when not a lot was known about this sort of thing. But I still can't. Well, she's dead now, so I can't give her any leeway at all. But back then, I still couldn't give her all that much leeway because, look, I'm trying to tell you what this is all about, and you're not listening.
Yeah, like
Yeah.
my mom wasn't even from that era. She was a baby boomer who was also a nurse, so she should have known better.
Well, and you cannot tell someone who is depressed, look at someone else's life. Um, that is something that you'll hear when you have depression. You'll hear, "Well, your life isn't so bad off. Look at these people in this other country. Why do you have what do you have to complain about?" Or with when it comes to the older generation that did live through the depression, well, we didn't even have stuff to eat. We were horribly poor. I don't see why this generation is so depressed. Um, Depression is not based on your circumstances. That's one of the things that really gets me so ticked off, because if you look at people like Anthony Bourdain, Kurt Cobain, all sorts, Chester from Linkin Park, and you're looking at these people, they had money, they had comfort, they had all the things that you would think would lead to a happy life, yet they were still clinically depressed.
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
it has nothing to do with your outside scenario. The outside can influence it, um, because people who have been abused their entire life are probably going to be more depressed. Um, but it's not going to be the cause itself or the cure.
Yeah. Good
Yeah.
point.
I would also like to say that
It's really important. This is a really important conversation for a variety of reasons, including what you guys just touched on. But it's really important that we hit on destigmatizing these mental illnesses.
Yes.
And I'm not sure that's the right word. I know in Spanish that's the word. That's like the terminology that we use, mental illness.
Oh yeah.
But it's really important that people start to realize that the symptoms of certain mental illnesses, especially depression and especially another very dangerous one, anorexia, can look like minor things. And people who have the beginning signs of depression, people who are about to begin a depressive episode, can at the very least, in some cases, begin to predict it because they can start to feel that they're changing. This isn't always the case, but it is the case with me where there's things that I can perceive where I'm beginning to realize that I'm about to undergo an episode.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Sec-
Secular?
yeah, it's a kind of a minor thing, but at least for me personally, if you tell me to smile more while I'm having a depressive episode, that is a surefire way to get me to not fucking smile.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. Um, and when someone is depressed, generally they're not looking for advice on how to make themselves feel temporarily better. Um, Smile more, go outside. Those are not things that are going to remove the depression. Those might be things that make you feel better, but they probably aren't going to help the person that's going through a depressive episode. The person that's going through a depressive episode that is seeking you out and talking to you just wants you to fucking listen to them.
Mhm.
And can I point out too that saying those things can be very harmful? I know
Mhm.
for
Oh
myself,
yeah.
um, when I'm depressed, I don't go near people because I don't want to hear that. And that's a time when I should be around people.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah,
Yeah.
the last thing a lot of us, most of us want to hear is platitudes. So, oh, you're such a wonderful person and whatever, this, that, the other. That's actually not what I'm after anyway, or I am assuming a lot of people are not. We see it as just brushing us off. Um, when really, in my case, for example, what I would really like is just to sit down and talk to somebody over the dining table and about anything else, but you're such a great person, and you're. If I'm making any sense at all here.
No,
Yeah.
you're
And
totally making sense.
yeah. And I'll point out too that I over the years I've learned a lot of strategies to deal with what I go through. And um, there was a time when I didn't have those strategies. And when people did those things to me, um, I shouldn't say to me, they do typically mean well. They just don't know better. But
Yeah, I grant you
when
that.
they, yeah, when they said those things, um, that actually pushed me closer to being suicidal. So, you have to be careful when you say those things.
Yeah,
Yes,
and
you do.
if I can go to a bit back what GI said earlier about not wanting to feel temporarily better, that is, I feel like a lot of people can, at least here, can who have dealt with depression know what I'm talking about here. You don't want to feel better per se. You want to feel not broken.
Yes.
Mm.
Yes. Good
Mm-hmm.
point. And
Hello.
I just wanna say, um, telling someone to feel better for their sake is harmful.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Telling
Yeah.
someone that if you're upset you have to go to them is harmful. Um, if you really want to help someone and they're in your physical space, offer to go to a therapist with them if they're afraid. Most people are afraid if they've never been before.
I certainly was.
E-
Yeah, me too.
Exactly.
Yeah.
There's really nothing you can do except for listen. Um, if someone's going to cry, let them cry. If you know, looking up and having the right phone numbers to get to a professional is really important.
And I was I was honestly told when I was a child, and I was probably about 10 years old when I started having deep depression, that I didn't want to tell anyone about that because if I ever told anyone that I was deeply depressed, that they would lock me up and I would be put through the torture that my great uncle was put through when he was locked away in an asylum. Um, and so, I mean, that put so much fear into me. And so I pretended to be okay for so long in my life.
Yeah.
Um, it was just awful. And, you know, the U.S. does have an awful history when it comes to mental health. Um, Years ago, they used to, if you had an issue, you were basically going to get locked up.
For
Um,
life.
yeah, for life. They did horrible experiments. My great uncle. I don't know if you guys know about the Jefferson Asylum in Missouri. Um, they
I know about the ones in New York City.
they basically went along the lines of what can make a sane person insane can make a insane person sane. And so
Oh no.
they would lock them in a room for weeks without any contact. They would put people in rooms and constantly feed horrific noises to them. And it was just an awful thing. And so I was told when I was growing up, you don't want to admit that you have mental issues because if you admit this, you're going to be locked away.
Yes. The FSB actually told me one time when I made the mistake when I was younger of speaking of this. Um, she had told me, "Do you want to be like grandma?" Which her mother had spent a good deal of time in psych wards. Now, it was a little better there than in the Missouri system that you're talking about, Matt, but still, the implication was there of, you say anything, you're going to be subjected to bad things, you're going to be looked at as horrible. So the best thing to do is shut up. And
Yeah, and it's
again, that's
the
not what we need.
opposite now. It's the opposite now. Just to clarify, if anyone is afraid of going inpatient, if you do go into inpatient, you're usually there for 2 weeks. Why are you there for 2 weeks? So you can adjust to your meds.
Hmm.
They put you in there so that you're not walking around your place confused, accidentally setting your apartment on fire because your brain is adjusting.
Mm.
They bring your bloods to a level and then they let you go.
Yeah.
And just because you go to a hospital for an episode doesn't mean they'll keep you either. There is outpatient, there is inpatient, and both categories. They will, if you don't have a therapist, they'll help you find one, whether it's sliding scale or through your insurance or etc. They can be very helpful. Do not be afraid of going inpatient. They don't do what they did. What was it? Up until like mid 70s, late 60s, if you went in, they'd keep you.
Yeah.
But now they don't do that anymore. So there's really no reason to be afraid of going inpatient. In fact, it's not a bad experience at all. There's group therapy, there's single therapy, there's, adjusting to meds, they give you resources so that you can live a less painful life. It's really not a bad thing. Yeah, okay, you have a a 2 week quote unquote vacation. I like to think of it as a vacation, but because that's when someone's actually taking care of me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm.
Mm-hmm.
Can I want to say too that um, the whole fear thing of the asylum is uh, very similar to the whole fear thing of religion.
Yes.
Uh, not all, of course, but many religions where they're taught, the people with depression or mental disorders or whatever, oh, they've got a demon inside them. So
Mm.
these people try to hide who they are so that they're not going to burn in hell or whatever. Um, and I say that for two reasons. One is um, religious people do need to stop using fear as a tactic to try to get people to conform. And the second reason is we need to be understanding of religious people when they're hiding who they are or um, not wanting to go see a therapist. They have um, uh, what I would call irrational fears, right?
Yeah.
So we
Yeah.
have to be
Now,
careful.
when we're
And
talking about, oh,
oh,
go secular, go.
Okay. I'd like to say that if you want to help someone who's going through depression, the best thing you can do is make sure they get professional help and just fucking be there.
yeah.
Mhm.
Like, I'm sorry for bringing up my old friend so much, but it's recent, so it's easier for me to recall. But he said he was always there for me, and like while we were friends, he was. And honestly, if it wasn't for him, I probably wouldn't be here right now. I've been through some really shitty times, and it's important to have someone that you can talk to that'll just listen.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I can't believe it. We're already an hour into this stream. This I would like to kind of start to take us towards the LGBTQ plus because religion and society uses the high suicide rates of people in that community
Oh
as
boy.
as a means of saying that, well, that's obviously why they're wrong. That's obviously why it's immoral. Um, the
I'll get to that in a
opposite
minute. Finish.
the opposite is actually true. The reason why their rates are so high is because they are treated so poorly by society as a whole.
Mhm.
Um,
Yes.
when you're
Um,
go ahead.
yeah, I did a video recently. I think it was 2 videos ago, answering John MacArthur of Grace Ministries in Southern California, and he said in as many words that we isolate ourselves. We do these bad things to ourselves. He even tried. Well, he didn't cite his sources, which he's a piece of shit for that. Claimed that the suicide rate post transition for us was 19 times higher than that of the general population. That wasn't even right. For one,
Mm.
you'll find that in the video. But here he is telling people to shun people like us, to avoid people like us,
Mm.
because that's going to be good for them somehow when it's exactly the last thing we need.
Mm.
No,
Well,
I'm
and
not too passionate about this issue. No, I'm not really.
can I tell you the real reason why they say to avoid people like you and people who are in the LGBTQ community?
I'm going to guess. Now tell me, and I'll tell you whether or not I guessed right.
Because when you expose yourself to people in the LGBTQ plus community and you make friends in that community, you can no longer say that what they do is immoral.
Damn, I got it right.
You see them as
Don't
humans.
humanize don't Don't humanize the enemy.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It's, it's so disgusting.
I've been I am lucky enough to live in a place where that's a lot more liberal than the rest of America. Homophobia is pretty rare here, but it's still a topic that hits very close to home because I've had friends who have been like I have a friend who's non-binary,
Okay,
and
fine.
and their father doesn't believe that trans people or non-binary people are really a thing.
Yeah, that
Like,
was MacArthur's thing. Yeah, we
no,
don't exist.
no. It's really confusing though because his dad is gay.
Oops.
Oh.
No, so it's like um, me and them make the joke a lot that his dad is part of the LGB community, and
Oh,
but homophobia is just something that's just any hatred towards the LGBT community. I kind of use homophobia as a broad thing, but you know what I mean.
Yeah.
Um, it's
Oh, I
caused
had.
it's
No, keep
caused
going.
yeah, it's caused us to lose some amazing people.
Mm.
The one that pops into my head right now, probably because I'm making a video on them, is Alan Turing.
Oh,
Uh,
yes.
Yeah.
he was
just thought
he was
of him.
prosecuted for being gay, and then committed suicide by cyanide poisoning very soon after.
He saved us all, and then we killed him, basically.
Yeah,
Yeah. Did he not commit suicide partly because of the chemical castration to which he was subjected?
Yes.
yeah. I'm sure it was also that.
That's
Yeah,
just it's
and
awful. And you know, when it comes to the community we're speaking of right now, the LGBTQ plus community, um, I see still that there is some, like what he said, adversion to say bisexual people as well as asexual people. Um, and I
I
don't
did a. Oh, sorry.
go ahead.
I did a stream recently with Corey Keith, and Diana jumped into that stream as
I
well.
still have to get hold of Corey, but keep going.
Yeah. And it was on trans safety because in many places it's not safe for trans people as well as the whole LGBTQ community. But Corey brought up that 40% of youth that are on the streets are LGBTQ.
Yes.
Yeah.
And much of that is religious based, or if it's not religious based, it's just bigotry. Um, and like, you can't be a caring person and put your kid out on the street like that. Like, I mean, I don't understand it. I shouldn't say you're not a caring person, but I do not understand how you could be a caring person if you're willing to throw your kid out of the house because of who they are.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's one of the reasons I had my mouth shut for so long. I mean, I knew that something was up with me at the age of, say, 10, 11, that sort of thing. And I knew that I could not say a word because I would be a 10 or 11-year-old on the damn street. And this was at a time when the social support was not what it is now. And even now, the social support isn't necessarily all that great. I mean, okay, I was 10 in 1967. So that was not exactly a good time for that sort of thing.
No. And Luciano, I would like to get your take on this, because I know that asexual people are kind of misunderstood in today's society.
Yeah, so as an ace person, I spent years not knowing that I was ace. And that's one of the things that people need to realize. I've asked other asexual people if they knew that they were ace. And at the very least people that I've talked to are just like, yeah, we didn't know that, because it's like it's not like other parts of the queer plus community where it's like you can feel that there's something different about you. Asexuality, at the very least in my experience and in the experience of other people that I've talked to, is like you're missing something. And you'd think in a sex negative society like the United States and like Honduras and Colombia, where I was raised, that would be a good thing. But then it's really not, because when you're talking with people and they're talking about how it is that they feel and they're talking about their desires, it's really weird to not be able to relate, because that was always the case for me. And then it wasn't until I came to college that I was able to like really realize what that meant, because I was raised in a place where I didn't hear the word atheist for the first time until I was 17. And like that goes even further for all the different kinds of sexualities and all the people who reject the gender binary and who don't belong on the gender binary.
And I maybe if you'd like to describe what asexual or ace is a little bit, because I think it's hard for people to grasp, really.
Sure. So asexuality is not necessarily just the lack of sexuality, but it's for people who feel extremely limited amounts of sexual attraction to other people. I am an asexual person. The specific term that I use, because we have our own internal jargon, because there's different shades of asexuality, but the one that most generally applies to me is someone who's demisexual, someone who's absolutely incapable of feeling sexual attraction unless they're with someone they formed a significant bond with. And
Okay.
yeah, that means a lot to people, because then people are just like, oh, you have standards or whatever. That's not what it is. It's literally an inability to feel sexual attraction to people unless you are actually like, you formed a significant bond with them. And that's a really important distinction, because there are people who are gray. There's people who are like completely unable to feel sexual arousal. And I see the question in the chat by Chrismer. I'm going to respond to it. But it's worth noting that there are people who are legitimately incapable of experiencing sexual attraction. That's a thing that people need to know, because obviously not everyone feels the same way, but I am demi, so I can. And in response to Christmer's question, so there are people who do. I don't care if people know whether or not I do. I do occasionally, but that's like obviously a TMI thing. If you guys are looking at the comment section, then you guys know what I'm talking about.
Yes,
I
I saw that.
There are people who don't. Most of the other asexual people I know who are completely asexual, they're people who don't feel any sexual attraction at all, don't.
So then is demisexuality, is that included in the asexuality sphere? Is that
Yes, it is. It's a part of the gray sexuals. So it's for people who are capable of experiencing a minor level of sexual attraction to other people.
okay? Because on an earlier stream that I had in the past, I mentioned that I'm incapable of sexual arousal unless I have a deep emotional bond with someone. That doesn't mean that, I mean, okay, mental sexual arousal is what I'm talking about. Like stimulating the genitals is generally going to get something going down there.
Yeah,
Um,
that's another thing that people need to realize about people who are demi. Are you familiar with that term, or is this the first time you're hearing that?
with demisexuality, I've heard of demisexuality. That's what I've considered myself as, because I'm completely capable of mental sexual stimulation and sexuality if I'm with someone that I am deeply connected with. If not, then there's no mental interest in it, even if the equipment works.
Yeah, and that's another important thing. And like I've made videos, and I'm making a video another day that's talking about asexuality and pride. But there's people who need to realize that there's a distinction between romantic attraction and sexual attraction. And like
Yes.
people are consciously aware. No, I'm trying to think of the right way to word this. People are unconsciously aware of it because like they'll distinguish it themselves. But then when someone who's asexual talks about the fact that they date people, because like as a good number of people here know, I have a girlfriend. We've been together for 5 years now. Like we asexual people in many cases date. Like we're not celibate, and there are people who are celibate in our community. There's also people who are asexual and aromantic. They don't feel like they're capable of romantic attraction to anyone, and they've never met someone that they've been romantically attracted to. And that's a very valid thing that people need to realize and need to be willing to talk about.
If I may, I know I describe myself as bisexual a lot, but I think a better way of describing it would be biromantic, because I don't. How do I phrase this? I don't like placing labels on myself when I don't know what they mean, and I'll be honest, even to me, a lot of the LGBT uh, labels confuse me. But I honestly don't really enjoy sex all that much. Um, I mean, of course, it depends on the person, but really, how do I phrase this where it doesn't come off as like TMI? Uh, as long as the other person is satisfied, I'm happy. I don't care. I don't care about me. I that sounds bad, but um,
I think I'm understanding exactly what you're saying. You get more enjoyment from the pleasure and satisfaction of your partner than
yes,
you
exactly.
get yourself.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
That's kind of how I feel too. I enjoy it more when I'm able to please my partner, and but like me, I don't know. I don't. It's not priority number one, you know.
Yeah,
I'm
with
very
me,
much like. Oh, sorry.
sorry. With me though, I think I think I would place myself somewhere on the asexual spectrum, but it's confusing because I'm not even sure I 100% understand uh myself at this in this with this issue. Um,
And
Well,
sorry, sir.
it, it,
I just want to say this is the importance of us discussing it and having the the communication out there, let people know what these things are and um, why it matters, so that more and more people will know, so that people like yourself, secular, um, and Luciano, um, feel more accepted because there's more people that understand.
well,
Oh,
oh,
sorry.
I was just going to say it might be controversial for me to make this statement, but I think that sexuality is a lot more fluid than we actually admit. Um,
Oh, right.
Mhm.
I think that, and I think that we're kind of entering an age where that's going to be recognized more and more. That you might associate as being 100% straight, but one day you might meet a guy that just sweeps you off your feet. You know what? To put that in those terms.
Hey, it
Um,
happened to me, Matt.
and I think that there's a lot more of that than there are people who just fit 100% in one category or another.
Asexuality is very good at that because most like there's a community within the asexual community of people like me who've always been asexual and who will probably like always fit somewhere in that spectrum. But asexual people have no, at least for the most part, have no issue with people using the label and then not using it later on. And that frustrates people, and there's legitimate reasons to be frustrated with that, but it makes sense, especially if we're going to be talking about sexual fluidity, for people to understand and for people to conceptualize sexuality as a far ranging spectrum that people move on throughout the course of their lives.
Yeah,
yeah,
speaking just of my own personal experiences, I have never engaged in sex with a man, but I can't say I've never been sexually aroused by a man. I think most people, even if they wouldn't admit that it's true with almost everyone that you have sexuality is much more fluid than we like to admit it.
And that said, it is absolutely important that we start including people,
Yes.
because shaming someone for the way that they love or don't love or the way they are is really not fair.
And
Absolutely.
I,
Yeah.
I can tell you, I get some guff for the streams that I have on the LGBTQ plus community, because I associate myself as straight. People will sometimes say, "Well, why the hell are you having this discussion? You're not a part of that community. Why are you doing this?" Um,
Aye.
and it's important for us to have these discussions. And so it's important for me because I've learned things during this stream. And getting to know people, exposing yourself to other people's viewpoints is so important to treating people with respect and treating people as if we're all part of the human race.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
That makes me absolutely angry, because that's like saying I can't support Black Lives Matter because I'm white. That's like saying a man can't be a feminist. That's like saying, oh, well, you're not part of the group, so you're not part of the group. What? No, I care. Let me
Yeah.
care. Let me
Yeah.
love people.
Yeah,
Back off.
I'd also like to say that um, the LGBT plus banner is used for like pride and stuff like that because uh, gay and bisexual and trans folk are really discriminated against.
Mm-hmm.
However, when we're having a discussion about sexuality, straight is a sexuality.
Yep.
Yeah.
Talking from a purely like a non when you're not talking about specifically pride, I think it's perfectly acceptable to put straight in with the LGBT banner because
Well, wouldn't
I
it
don't know.
be?
It's hard. Sorry. It's hard to describe the way I'm thinking, but um, straight people have absolutely as much of a right to talk about uh, issues dealing with sexuality as anyone else.
Exactly. And I was going to say I think that there might be some people, so I won't say wouldn't be. But I was having a discussion with Kyle Curtis last night, and he said, I really wish that we didn't have to have Pride Month, or
Right.
Pride
Yeah.
parades or anything along those lines. That I wish we could get to a point where it was just this is Kyle and he prefers to have, he is attracted to men and it's a completely normal thing.
Hmm.
And I think most people who are in groups where they do have like the pride parades and things like that, they're working towards a point when it's just accepted and taken for granted that these people are human, they're normal like everyone else, and it's not a necessary thing.
Yeah.
Another thing to
Yeah.
point out too, though, is like when people are saying, "Oh, you're not a part of the group," that what a lot of them are doing is self-segregation,
Yes.
which it's harmful to them, but it's also a defense mechanism because they can't handle the discrimination, so they try to stay away from the straight people, so they're not those straight people won't discriminate against them. So we do need to somewhat understand where they're coming from and know that they're using this as a defense mechanism to protect themselves and be compassionate and give them time and let them know that you are an advocate.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we absolutely need the straight, cisgendered, etc. community, the so-called normal community, and I'm using normal in the bell curve sense here. We need you folks because, for the most part, you grok this, in the words of Robert Heinlein. You get it, and you can show the rest of the world because you get it. Maybe they can as well. It's um, it's a means toward inclusion, and I don't want to sound like I'm using you folks,
No, no,
but
No, I
I
get
get
it.
it.
your acceptance, public acceptance, is going to, I hope anyway, generate more public acceptance.
Yes.
Hmm.
And that's why these streams and these discussions are so important because we want our society to be more inclusive,
Yeah.
and this is a step toward that, I hope.
And if we were to put both our discussions, the one on suicide and one on the LGBTQ community together, um, understand that because of the bullying and the bigotry out there, there's a lot of depression in the community, the queer community, and um, when they do push us away like that and say you're not a part of it, you gotta you gotta really be careful and not speak out against them, because that is us being bullies, right?
Right.
So
Yeah.
we would be adding to the problem, um, and it's with the queer community. It's with um, like, I'm a fetishist, and I hear it throughout society, all the derogatory things said about it, and um, you know the research into it is still fairly young. There's still a lot of research needing to go into needs to go into it, but um, even within the skeptic community, there's a lot of derogatory use of fetishes, and
Mm-hmm.
you hear about you same with disabilities. People will talk about disabilities like it's a derogatory thing, and like Faye said about the microaggressions, you got to really watch what you say. And another thing that's said a lot is um, it's just words. Words don't hurt. How do you know words don't hurt?
They can, yes.
Yeah.
Words can hurt, and maybe you haven't been through that experience of something that, or like, even we were talking depression can bring you down to a point where um, a lot can hurt.
Well,
And go ahead, Matt.
I was gonna say, with my own situation, people will say words don't hurt, but I am on the autism spectrum, and someone saying the wrong thing towards me can
Mm-hmm.
stick with me for weeks, and I can
Oh
just
yeah.
sit and focus on that um, for much longer than someone that's not on the ASD spectrum. Um, it might be something said in jest. I might realize it was said in jest, and yet it still sticks with me for weeks and months at a time.
Mm-hmm.
And I just obsess about it. And so yeah, we do need to watch what we say.
Yeah.
It can be difficult for some people. Especially if someone says, "Hey, that bothers me when you talk about that." If you continue to do that, you're being disrespectful.
Yeah.
Um,
One. One thing I'd like to point out too is if words can't hurt, then why is there such a thing as emotional and psychological abuse?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Well, yeah.
If I may, I said before that I'm of the opinion that that words have as much power as you give them,
Yeah.
and I stand by that. However, if you use that as an excuse to keep, uh, of course, if I say something and it offends you, and you tell me, I will profusely apologize because I legitimately do not mean to upset anyone.
Mm.
But if you use the words have as much power as you give them as an excuse to then keep offending someone,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
you're just a complete dick.
Yeah.
Can
Exactly.
I address why that phrase is wrong though? I'm saying words uh, are only as powerful as you let them be. Um, you what you're ignoring is all the things that is not within your control. With mental health issues like autism and depression and stuff like that, we don't give her we don't give the meaning to those words. Um, our depression does, or our autism does, and um, I, I don't know how to
Just
explain it
well
right, but
No, no,
to
I understand, Don.
yeah,
I don't mean it to
and
be. Yeah, I know where you're coming from. When I say words have as much meaning as you give them, I mean, I don't mean like you get to choose exactly how you react to words.
yeah,
There are things that could be said to me that make me completely fucking fly off the handle, or will make me, uh, that'll make me go into a depressive state that'll trigger my depression, and I have no control over those. However, there are a large number of words that you can. Um,
I, yeah, that
I
yeah, I mean, words have as much meaning as you give them more for the person uh saying them than the person uh on the receiving end. If you say I'm
okay.
a faggot with malicious intent, then I will have a problem with that. However, if you say I'm a faggot as a joke, I probably won't care as much.
Yeah,
yeah.
context is everything. And
Exactly.
if I may add, the words have a great impact on the kids. When you hear throughout your childhood what a piece of shit you are,
yeah.
Mm.
you're learning at this time. Your brain is, developing at its greatest rate. And all you get are these words. That is going to make a lifelong impression on you.
It's
Um,
true.
If I can jump in here and kind of I'm seeing both sides of this. I think Don is correct in what he's saying that words do have power, and a lot of times we can't control what the word does to us because of our depression or our autism or things along those lines. Um, I think what secular is trying to say is that if we destigmatize these words, and if we get them to the point where, like I had talked about, if someone calls me gay now, I refer it as a positive, that I'm fabulous and I have good fashion sense, or something along those lines. That we're taking away the ability for the bully to use them as a slur.
Yeah.
yeah, and that,
Yeah, and
I have one comment though, and um, it does help if you can try to give people the permission to be not perfect,
Yeah,
to be wrong, to be flawed, to be absolutely head up their butt. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah,
this person is so ridiculous and they just said the worst thing to me. But you know what? I'm gonna let it go because it's not my fault that they're back in 1940.
yeah,
Yeah.
Yeah,
but
yeah,
that
also,
goes
if
back
I may,
to
oh,
what I was saying, where a lot of the times it can't be helped.
yeah,
yeah,
Um,
if I can rephrase a bit, because yeah, thinking about it, it's not the best way to phrase it. Um, I think a better way to phrase my opinion on the matter is that words are less important than intent.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's the
I'm with
intent.
you. I'm with you.
It's the
And
intent.
secular, just know um, I was not attacking you for what you
Oh
said.
no. Yeah, I understand. I mean that. Thank you for bringing it to my attention because it allows me to phrase it better in the future.
And I wanted to take a moment to relate a personal story that relates to the topic at hand. Um, my cousin shot himself, and he lived another 8 hours after shooting himself. Uh, it was a very difficult thing to take. Um, I was still a minister at the time, and I was still at the peak of my fundamentalism, and I had to give a sermon the next Sunday, and the second I walked through the door, I heard this two elderly ladies talking about how sad it was that my cousin was now in hell, um, and so it was that moment that triggered my deconversion. I really started to look at things, and I realized also that if, like, I wish my cousin had not chosen to take that action.
Okay, right.
But if he hadn't at the same time, I might have. I was very much close to taking my own life at that point. I didn't have anything going for me at the time. I was in a bad marriage. Things weren't going well for me financially. I was constantly depressed, and I was very close to ending it. One of the things that I want to highlight here that really ticks me off is when people say that someone that committed suicide is a coward.
Mm.
Uh, there is
Exactly.
no cowardice to someone who has taken their own life. That person has been tormented in their mind for a long period of time. And they're choosing to end that in the best way that they see. Is it the best way? I would say no. But they aren't cowards. And
Right.
when you say that, what you're doing is everyone else who is having those experiences, who is having those thoughts, you just added another level to them. You're saying,
Yeah.
well, you're having these thoughts, so I'm having these thoughts, so I must be a coward. So why haven't I just gone ahead and done it?
Yeah, and in my own case, one of the reasons I'm still alive is because I'm a coward. I've come close more than once. And I mean, when I say close, I mean close. And basically, what kept me from it in those situations is I was too chicken to kill myself. I didn't want it to hurt. I didn't want to know that I was dying while I was dying. Um, so, yeah, sometimes suicide can be the bravest act a person can commit. No, I'm not condoning it, but the bravery has to be there.
Yeah, I've had a couple nights where I've stayed up all night with a knife to my throat, and I just couldn't do it because I was afraid of the pain.
Mhm.
Well,
Same.
and that's one of the things with my cousin. Like I said, he lived 8 hours after shooting his face off with a shotgun. Um, and the cognitive portion of his brain, they said, wasn't affected, which,
Oh, no.
think of that. And the people in my church were so happy that he still had the ability to think, because they thought, well, maybe he did have a chance to repent during those 8 hours.
Oh, what the fuck?
But he was
Fucking
in
raised on a bicycle.
think of the constant pain that he was in during that time. Just it it's very hard for me to talk about. Um,
I understand.
but I mean,
Well,
just
you're quite strong for doing so, Matt.
Yes.
what he went through, no one should go through. And it was not only hearing the people saying he was going to hell, but then it was hearing the people saying how happy they were that he didn't die instantly.
That's
That
really rough.
just it it basically that day destroyed it. I tried for over a year to restore my faith, but I just kept coming back to that people of religious faith could condemn someone to hell for taking their own life, but not only that, they could be joyful that it wasn't the quick ending that my cousin had hoped for.
It's disgusting, isn't it?
But
It is.
but
I
it's not
know.
the people themselves that um, that are to blame. It's the
It's
indoctrination
it's the
Mhm.
that they
faith.
went through.
And if I had thought at that time, well, this is just awful people, I might still be in the church today. But I realized it was the faith.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If
Um,
I can,
I just want to say one thing. The only reason why I'm still here is because I wouldn't want to inconvenience anyone with my death.
Hmm.
yeah, that's something that's
yeah.
kept me going too. Um, if I can get kind of personal, um, I don't drive, and this may sound weird, but I have a very good reason for it. And that's because right after I lost my friend was when I got my driver's permit, and um, I when I was like practicing driving, I had the thought of, you know what? If I wanted to end it, I could just go out at night, get in my car, go 80 down the freeway, and drive right into the fucking divider. It'll look like an accident, and there's no way I'm surviving. And
And that was my friend Dave.
that stuck with me for so fucking long that I don't trust myself to be behind the wheel because I know that if something happens like what happened uh, with him, I would go driving and I wouldn't come back.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know if we discussed it here or if it was just in the green room, but we're pretty sure that my friend Dave died that way. He'd always been troubled. Um, it was a good thing that he had a good number of friends around him, when we were in high school, that sort of thing. But later on, he was basically alone, and finally, he was driving back up to Cleveland, and the car hit a trestle, and just by a couple of the things that he had communicated to his father and a few other things, we just looked at each other and said, "Yeah, that was no accident."
Hmm.
Um,
Mm. Wow.
And I can say, I think, secular, I would consider it commendable that you know that that's a risk. Because I can honestly say I've been driving down the road and thought, if I just aimed for that tree, I could end it. And I mean, I never took that action, but I think it's
Yeah,
commendable that you see that.
with me, it's mostly just because I know how I think when I'm depressed, and I know that if I were to go driving, I wouldn't come back. That would be the end.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I have that same fear with driving as well.
Hmm.
yeah, I don't drive because I can't afford it, but that's grist for another mill.
This is
And can I point out how valuable everyone here is, though? You know, like if Secular went driving, um, he would be severely missed.
Yes.
Um, you contribute so much to the community, Secular, as well as everybody here, and um, just know the importance of what you're doing here. Um, uh, Not only are we helping you, but you are helping us as well.
Yeah,
And
I, if I can for a second, I can't, I really can't overstate how much you all have helped me. Like I know I'm not the best at communicating it, and I know I don't really talk to you as much as I probably should because I consider you all very close friends at this point.
Well, thank you.
But
Thank you many much.
I,
but
Likewise.
I
I
consider everyone here in this chat, and many others in the community, to be closer than my own family. Um,
yeah
yes,
so I mean, I've shared things with you guys and the people that watch these streams that I would never feel comfortable sharing with people in my own family. Um, I have been able to open myself up, and now I'm gonna get really really emotional.
that's
Um,
okay.
I have severe social anxiety, to the point where I don't tend to leave my house very much. Um, and it there's a lot of different facets that go into that. Um, but I truly see you all as family.
Thank
And
you.
you are
Thank you.
all valued members of my family. I love each and every one of you.
Thank
yeah.
you, Matt. I feel
If
the same.
if I can also get kind of personal, um, I have I also have really bad social anxiety, and that makes it really hard to talk to you guys. As much as I love talking to you guys, every time I get on stream or try to DM one of you on Twitter, it just I always have a moment of maybe I shouldn't send this. Maybe this isn't the right thing to do. Maybe I'll say something wrong and that'll fuck everything up and I'll just lose all of my friends I've made here.
Uh, I'll just say this, Secular. If you DM me, I will be over the moon.
Yeah.
And I feel the same. And I mean that about what you said, Secular, and what Wonder Lady said, because um, many times I've typed a message and then just deleted it because I was worried about how it would be perceived.
And I
Yeah,
would just
and
add to that, never be worried that you're going to say the wrong thing with me in a DM, or um, I would love to have you DM me, and there's like one of the things that I do, that I can say that I'm kind of proud of myself for, is I can see there are certain people that don't feel comfortable DMing other people, and so I try to actively DM people and include them. Um, so I mean, I love each and every one of you. I say that and I mean it. So anytime you want to have a stream or anything like that, if I'm available, yeah, definitely DM me. Even if you just want to have a private chat.
Yeah. Same here. And I'm one of those people that I don't reach out very much because I'm just really shy and I feel like I'm bugging people. So
Yeah.
message me.
Yeah.
Send me a message. I will talk to you. Anybody who's on
yeah,
my list. And I don't care what your background is or anything. I just want to be there to support people because there's a lot of times in my life where I didn't have any. So
Yeah,
And this
I
my
mean, if
message
this
I
is
stream is sorry, this stream is a very emotional one, and I'm seeing a lot of emotion in the chat as well. That doesn't, what's being said here isn't just going for the few people in the actual stream here. That's the chat as well. Like,
Yes.
Yeah.
if
Yeah,
if
yeah.
you need to reach out to us, please do.
Well,
I am going to say, if you don't mind, you folks here, the entire community that I'm now a part of, I will say is very much responsible for my actually being here to talk to you guys. Now, I don't want to exclude anybody, but Matt, Don, you guys especially, Jen, just being able to communicate with you, talk back and forth, I don't feel quite as lonely as I did prior. Now, of course, it doesn't, as I say, it doesn't replace people around the dining table, but this is a damn next best thing. And I want to say it again. Thank you. I thank you so much because it was close.
we love you, Aunt Diana.
Yes.
Yeah.
I'm
Totally.
also going to say that as a fairly mobile kid who did a lot of moving around, because my family was military, having friends online, like these are real friendships, these are real
Yes.
relationships, and it's absolutely true that it's not as good as being able to see someone, being able to hug someone, being able to shake their hand. But our friendships are real. The relationships that we're building here are valid, they're legitimate, and
Absolute.
know that we are your real friends. If you guys need people and you hear us say, and just so people know, they can also message me. I am not super active on Twitter, but I tweet a decent amount. I check my DMs, I respond. If you guys need to talk to somebody and you're worried about the people in your local communities judging you, please, please reach out to your digital friends. Please let us know what you're going through. Please don't be as alone as you can be, because your struggles matter. What you're going through is important. And there are people who want to know that you're okay. Or there's people who want to know that you can talk to them. And if you can't, we understand. But please do what you need to feel better. Even if it's a temporary thing, which it often is, do what it takes, please.
Yes.
You
That's
want
a powerful statement because, like I said before, that it's difficult for me to do that,
And
especially when I'm feeling depressed and when I'm having these
Exactly.
thoughts that I'm bothering people.
Yeah, me too.
And I just have to say, I know there is a kind of like a bias still about online relationships. Like, oh, never met them. Yeah, actually, I probably know them better than I know you.
Yeah.
yeah,
And
Yeah.
well, you guys, I'm not going to say her name in this stream, but you guys know my quote unquote surrogate daughter. Her family is constantly telling her that my relationship with her is not real.
Mm.
And the last major holiday, she wanted to leave because they were dragging me down. I
Mm.
spoke to her every day for 10 years.
there is a stigma that doesn't need to exist anymore, um, about the friendships that you make online. Like I said, I'm more open and honest with you people on here than I am with anybody, with the exception of Mrs. Snarky, who is my fiance, and my friend Trey. Those are the only people that I feel comfortable enough to be this open and honest with in my regular day to day life. There's this idea of real world friends and online friends that just it needs to go away.
Exactly.
You know, and for someone like me, uh, I don't really enjoy face to face conversation, because I can be kind of slow to think. I oftentimes have awkward pauses in my actual face to face conversations because I'm trying at my hardest to pay attention and not look at someone in the eyes, because I have a deep issue with eye contact. So it can be a lot more difficult for me. So the friends I have online, I feel closer to than the people that I'm around every day in my work and normal day to day life.
Indeed.
I thought
Thank you.
I thought I had killed the stream for a second there.
No, actually,
It is really.
actually,
Oh, sorry.
it had to impact because it was huge.
Yeah.
Um, I oh, I'm sorry, I'm not trying to interrupt. Someone was trying to talk there.
No, it's all right. Go ahead.
I was just going to say that we have someone in the chat that is from Iraq, and they said that being a gay atheist in Iraq, we're giving them hope for what might one day be in their country's future. So that is just awesome to me. And
Yeah.
this video is
for
going
serving.
this video is going to be available for, I don't want to say all time, but it's going to be there on my channel for years to come. And this chat could help people 10 years down the road. We have no idea how wide our influence is going to be.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's also worth noting that at the very least in Latin America, things are not nearly as bad as they are in the Middle East for atheists, but there's still very real, often far worse stigma, and in many cases criminalization or quasi-criminalization of irreligious activity. And it's important that we are over here. That's not even going into the fact that in many countries in Latin America, being trans is criminalized in various ways, and being homosexual is stigmatized almost legally. For instance, homosexual people in most of Central and South America can't adopt. They can't get married and it's worth noting that these things are changing, but the sort of content that we're creating here is giving hope to people from South and Central America. And I know this because as a Latin American atheist, Latin American atheists watch my channel and they let me know what's going on with them in their lives. And it's worth noting that they don't only just view my content and content that's created in Spanish, they view the content of people like the Godless Iowan and like Secular and like Don and like Diana and like everyone here. They see our content and they're given hope by the fact that we're creating this content.
Exactly. And I just want to put this out here. Each and every one of the people in this stream today, anyone at all that has a channel on their own, if they want to download this and mirror it on their channel, feel free. Because this is such an important topic that everyone needs to hear this topic. So if you're a content creator, if you just have a channel and you don't really make content, feel free to download the stream and put it up. Because
Thank you, Matt. I just might do that.
Because it's so important.
Yeah.
We have reached our 2-hour time. There's so much more we could go into. But I think we've gotten to a good point here. I would love to have each and every one of you in a future stream with me on based around this same topic. But I thank you all for coming on my channel and being so open and honest.
Well,
thank you for
you're
having
very
us.
welcome. It is my pleasure.
Thank you for inviting me. It was definitely an emotional episode. Although if I can have a couple final words here.
Yeah.
If anyone, both in this chat and watching in the future, if you ever need someone to talk to, get in contact with. I can only confirm me, but I would also assume everyone else in this chat.
Yes.
Yes.
Definitely.
do not be afraid to reach out to us, because we are here, and it, even if I've never heard of you before, even if I've never met you, I will still respond to you, because everyone's well-being is important to me.
Yes.
I
Mhm.
I mean, I feel like I've been focusing a lot on the people in this chat, and I mean that is true. I talk to all of you probably less than I should. I mean, I know me and Diana have had a really awesome conversation on
Yes,
Twitter
we did.
before. But really, if anyone at all ever needs to talk to me, or just needs someone to listen, do not be afraid.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I completely agree with that sentiment. Reach out to somebody. Reach out to one of us. Um, use the resources that I've included in the description. Um, don't stay quiet. Don't bottle it up. Talk to someone. Seek out a medical professional. Your life is worth it.
And one last thing, we, like Matt said, we're not professionals, and whether you are having troubles or have been contacted by someone that is having troubles, um, be there for them as a support person, but not as a professional. Make sure um, they know how to get a hold of professionals, because those are the people that can get to the root of the problem. Um, like I've dealt with this for 30 years, and I am far from a professional and would not have the ability to give someone professional advice. And that's that's the way most people are.
Yeah,
And that professional help is a lifesaver.
that's right.
Yes.
Indeed.
Um, Mrs. Snarky, Wonder Lady, or Luciano, do you guys have any parting words?
Everything that I could possibly say has already been said. Uh, but yes, just reach out, and yes, seek a professional if you're going through something that, like Wonder Lady was talking about. If you've been struggling for 6 months, then you definitely need to seek some help. And
Yes.
we're here as a support system, and but you do need to seek therapy. Therapy, I can't give it enough positive reviews, because I've been through therapy, and it's saved my life. So, um, yeah, look into that.
Yeah.
Uh,
Is sorry, Wonder, but this is an intense conversation, and I'm glad that we could have it. I hope that anyone who needs to hear this right now, I hope that you guys heard this. I hope that you guys hung out with us, and I hope that in the future, if you just need someone to talk to, I hope you know that even if it's not us, there are people that you can talk to. There's resources that have been on the screen this whole time that are filled with people who are ready to do what they can to help you, and people who see the value in your life, and people who want to do what they can to keep you here, and to keep you here with us, because your life makes a difference. And not just to other people, but your life touches on people that you will never see. Your life touches on people that you may never realize you've positively helped. And there's so much potential, and there's so much goodness that you could do. But even if you don't live a life where you maximize your potential goodness, you still deserve to be here. You still deserve to have good memories, to have good experiences, and to live a life that makes you happy.
Mm.
That's right.
um, the one thing I would like to to contribute is there is no shame in therapy. I'm sure we've made that clear, but you don't have to be depressed or anxious to actually go and do some mental health hygiene
Mhm.
at times of change in your life, whether you're a teenager or graduating high school or graduating college or before you get married or whenever you have significant changes, a death in the family, that's a really good time to do some mental health hygiene, whether it be self help or going in to talk to a therapist to see if you're doing all right. Or maybe you just want to pull a friend aside and say, am I being ridiculous or am I okay? Because when I mean by ridiculous, like not myself, I do that. That's how I ask my sister, "Am I okay?" You know,
Yeah.
Yeah,
am I acting up because I'm physically unwell or mentally unwell? Like, am I okay? And it's good to like have a key phrase and blah 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 so that the person that you go to actually knows what you're talking about so you don't have to like you know go there. Sometimes it's uncomfortable to say am, am i am i am I in need of some special attention, but mental health hygiene is really important. You don't have to have any of these issues in order to maintain yourself. Think of it as washing your hands or taking a shower.
Mm. Mhm.
It really it makes a difference. It keep you coming from a good place because you need to be the best person you can be to yourself.
definitely.
If I
Thank
could
you.
actually have a couple more words, it just kind of it, I just kind of remembered something that I want to say. If you're coming from a bad place, I want you to know that you do matter. Um,
Yes,
even if you don't feel like it, I know that even if I don't know you personally, you do matter to me. Um, because it, if you're gone, I'll never get the chance to get to know you. I'll never get the chance to become your friend. I'll never get the chance to laugh with you and to talk with you. So you do matter to me, even if I don't know you personally yet.
Thank you
Exactly.
for that, Secular. Lavender Lady, is there something you'd like to leave us with?
I guess my sentiments are much the same as seculars. Um, in order to have that connection, you've got to be around to make it. Um, now, I know, okay, maybe some of it will sound like a platitude, but yeah, each one of us is special in our own way, worthwhile in our own way. Um, and as I say, you need to be around to have that recognized. So if you can at all stick it out, please do.
Yes,
Mhm.
Because there are atheists and foxholes, even ones we have in our brains.
exactly.
Mhm.
Mhm.
And I do want to say before we leave that every single one of the people here, their channel links are in the description. I would recommend subscribing to each and every one of them. They are all amazing. I do want to thank everyone that's been here to watching and engaging in the chat, and even those that's watched that hasn't engaged in the chat. Thank you all for being here. As you know, we live in a crazy world, but you are worth it. So please don't panic.